Hi, it's me again, Myrna. So, the recording time is 11 a.m., and Wilson was scheduled to host this segment, but unfortunately, he told me that he had to go get takeout from Hooters for lunch, so I'm filling in again for Romance! The Lovers! Whether it's for that special someone or it's between the words meat and pizza, we all love something. It's the universal constant, so let's all hope Wilson finds love in those $12 chicken wings, and we find what makes this year's romance nominees so lovely.
違うんだ違うから本当は借り人の服だ可愛い子だ
高くしてなさい。
なんかこれ新婚夫婦がネクタイミオの好きなようにやってみろ
ありがとうございます。私は旦那様に家族の温かさを教え
魔物の肉を
こんなことはい人生で初めてだよ。
でもあの花火の時和栗さんとの時間が終わってしまうのがすごく寂しくなって
じゃんありがとねさせるものか大塚さんもう大丈夫だレナコ何を根拠に私は運がいいんだ
まるで深い海のように透き通った。
And the jury chose My Dress Up Darling Season 2.
And the public chose The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity.
Oh man, these are some great picks right here. So, right off the bat, I just want to ask y'all, what do y'all think about these? What do you think about these choices?
I'd say I'm pretty satisfied with both of them. For the jury pick, I think M. Dutters was a really good choice for just something that most of the jury could agree on was good, because these were pretty polarizing results otherwise. A lot of people who really liked a lot of stuff, or a lot of people who didn't like other stuff. It's part of what made it so much fun. For the public result, I'm really not that surprised with Karuhana being the top there. It was a public darling back when the manga was having its chapters come out, and then it stayed a public darling when the anime aired. Yeah, that's a pretty predictable result right there. But I'm not complaining, because I absolutely love Karuhana myself. I was one of the biggest defenders of it when out in the jury.
And Aram, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of strong broad appeal here. There's a lot of entries that can be accessible to just about anybody. I think there's some starting romances being represented here. A lot of people who might be newer to the romance drama would be happier with these results.
Yeah, I think there's a great spread happening between these two shows. And I think that, it's interesting that these are the ones selected, because to me, I think that one of the core screenwriting ideas for romance is that love requires change. Like, a great romance forces characters to confront a belief about themselves through another person. So, what do y'all think actually is happening between the romance and what makes them unique in these two specific shows?
Yeah, and me personally, I have a lot that I can yap about with both of these. In M. Dutter's case, the whole series revolves around Gojo facing his belief that he's lesser for his hobbies, or that he needs to be ashamed of himself because of his hobbies. I'm getting to see Maureen, who has absolutely no shame and unbridled passion in what she does. And one of the best parts about Season 2 is the fact that it's able to explore this concept with other characters as well, such as with Amano, who started out similarly to Gojo, but eventually gained the confidence needed to become a cosplayer, the same way that Gojo's arc in this season is about gaining his confidence and confronting the belief that his hobbies are shameful when there's no shame in what he does whatsoever. And I guess I'll have Aram talk about M-Dutters as well before we move on to Karuhana.
Well, I think I would push back a little bit on the idea that it's about change. I would think that actually these two entries are more about acceptance. Dress Up Darling is a lot about accepting who you are, accepting what you like, and about a group of people coming together who all accept each other and find great joy in that. And I think the same applies with Karuhana, with Fragrant Flower, between the two leads really coming to accept each other as kind of unconventional members of their communities, but that they can see the good in one another. So I think there's a lot of kind of that idea of acceptance leading to romance in these two shows.
Oh, that's really interesting. You know, I like that My Dress Up Darling comes at it from cosplay through the hobby that they share together. And whenever you do cosplay, it's like this mechanism where, you know, every costume sort of forces intimacy and trust and mutual dependence upon one another right there. So through that act, these two leads, Marin and Gojo, actually have to come together every single time they go through all of these right there. I think that Karuhana has a lot about, like, it's less about insecurity and more about the prejudice and social identities that they're having to fight against in their classmates and the schools that they go to. And like maybe that could be something that y'all want to tap into.
The parallel definitely is there. I think Dress Up Darling, you talked a little bit about the cosplay element, and I think in Fragrant Flower, it's a little bit less of situations getting them together. It's a little bit less of, you know, they both have needs that each other fulfill. With Fragrant Flower, it's a little bit more we like each other and we have that sort of relationship with each other, and that kind of overpowers everything else. Versus Dress Up Darling is a little bit more, it was because of this situation that we are in, we have come to be together, and that has caused us to realize that we have these romantic feelings for each other.
Yeah, I think I'll add on to my thoughts, because one of the aspects of M-Dutters that I appreciate is the fact that the romance is built upon this tangible idea of building cosplay as a means of growing the relationship, which is a concept that doesn't really exist in Karuhana the same way, where Reintaro and Karuko both are coming together because, well, they just simply enjoy their company together, which I think is another way of doing romance, and I think that Karuhana is able to perform that very well.
So it looks like that y'all have a wide spread amongst y'all's picks for romance right here. And I was wondering, how did y'all deliberate upon this? Like, what was the process like for the romance jury to select all of these?
Yeah, this was one of the most interesting parts of being in the romance jury this year, is that there was really no front runners. Where normally in the awards there's a couple shows that everybody generally likes. In romance, no, it's everybody kind of had their own little pet favorite shows, but there was very few shows that everybody was backing. There was very few shows that everybody was in support of, and so it was interesting to see kind of everybody, you know, finding their little favorites that they liked above everybody else's little favorites, and trying to experience one another's perspective a lot more, because there was just less agreement, less unity. So it kind of came out in this kind of very widespread tasting plate of all these different options.
Yeah, like this is my first time ever being a juror, and it was such a interesting experience because of the fact that when you go on to like AniList, you can see like the ratings and scores for certain things. People on YouTube tend to have a pretty homogenized view on how they speak about series. Here, this was kind of the first time where I ever experienced, people have very different opinions about very different things very frequently. It was really exciting to be able to see so many different perspectives. Sometimes it was a little frustrating trying to understand a perspective initially, but the more and more that I listened, the more and more I tried to understand, the more and more I began to really appreciate the different views of other people, because it pushed me to create better arguments in favor of the shows that I like the most as well. And I think that because of how how rigorous the discussion around these shows is. I ended up being very content with the jury ranking overall because of the fact that we were able to discuss all of these shows in such a detailed in such a detailed way. And it was a wonderful experience being able to being able to get this ranking done.
You know, it's interesting that you bring up saying that, like, oh, well, you're a new juror, you're coming into here and you're experiencing things that you ordinarily wouldn't. So I kind of wanted to prod y'all a little bit because y'all are both jurors right here. So I couldn't help but notice that at 4th place, there's this little show called The Lenticulars there. And going along with what you were saying, Aiden, how you were being exposed to all of these new arguments and possibly new shows, was that one of those shows that you were just very surprised to learn that it even existed?
Yeah, I was surprised to find out that it existed, and the experience of watching it was pretty fun. It was very unlike anything else, and because of that, I can respect it a lot. I unfortunately didn't enjoy it nearly as much as other jurors did, but it's a work that I can respect very heavily. And as a result, I can understand where it placed very well.
Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, it was my pick to win personally. I think that Lenticulars is an absolutely just beautiful little piece of art. This kind of very unique thing, and because of that, I valued it very highly. That I was able to give them this unique experience that I hadn't really been able to see before in anime. And so, the fact that we have this kind of little passion project, you could feel the passion radiating off it. That I was like, I want to highlight this. I want people to see that the jury approves of this little piece of art that nobody's ever heard of, because it is just something truly unique and interesting that you should experience. And it's only 30 minutes total runtime, and so I think it's something that everybody in our audience should go out and take the time to give a look to.
I would agree. Like, even if you don't end up liking it, I think it's something that absolutely is worth watching because of how short it is.
There is like a slight little spoiler on there in that, like, the last episode is, I want to say, like, is it like 20 minutes of just blank space? Like, it's
Yeah,
dead
I mean,
air.
there's more than there's blank space, but yeah.
Yeah. So if you want the full experience, you have to sit through that. No, you gotta like just watch the screen, watch them do that right there. All right. Well, I want to save more time for the rest of the other categories right here. So thank you so much for joining us, Aram and Aiden, 2 jurors for the romance category.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure being on here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, on to the next genre.